Hello, and welcome to Trophy Hunt. Here, well, right now what you look at is a completely empty Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, preparing for the start of this week's edition of Trophy Hunt. How do I get out of here? There we go, press start. That's how you do it. The Red River Shootout. The battle for the golden hat, and it is effectively a golden hat. And when you win the game, you put a golden hat upon your head. Just put it custom temperature maybe a little bit up, wind a little bit down. There we go. We're doing the Red River Shootout back when it was indeed called the Red River Shootout. Now it is called the Red River Rivalry for reasons only to be speculated upon, I assume. You know, guns and the kind of violent name that it's not the most violent name you can possibly think of, you know. Oregon and Oregon State play the Civil War. That's a little bit more than just a shootout. That's a full-fledged war. Iowa and Minnesota play over a pig, so I mean that'd be what I'd be more worried about. We here take the second-ranked Texas Longhorns in NCAA football 2003 as they run out of the tunnel that they decided to stop in front of against their bitter rivals in the South of the Big 12. Back when there was a Big 12 South, this is a matchup between two teams still in the Big 12. A matchup that will still be played for years to come, as it was played before there was a Big 12. And as there is currently a Big 12, that will undeniably crumble soon. I mean, not undeniably, but will most likely, let's be honest, will probably crumble soon. This rivalry might live on. Granted, what school is more likely to force the Big 12 to crumble than the University of Oklahoma? Let's be completely honest here. If anybody's going to okay, here's what happened last year. 2014, as everybody remembers. In no shortage of words, the selection committee for the college football playoff, which started last year, stated that an 11-1 TCU team and an 11-1 Baylor team did not get a chance to be in that top four to have a chance at the national title. Two teams from the Big 12, I should mention, if you don't already know. They did not even deserve a shot at a playoff spot. Effectively because they did not play a conference championship game at the end of the season. Now, it should be stated that they did play everybody in the conference already. And TCU lost to Baylor, and Baylor lost to West Virginia. So, which loss is worse? Well, obviously, the West Virginia one, but in the matchup of the two best teams in the conference, Baylor came out on top. Not in a convincing fashion, but just they did come out on top in a shootout in a really very exciting game. I believe it was a 20-point comeback to win. In what was kind of a dormant rivalry. Two schools that have every reason to hate each other. Being one with a really very strong football history in terms of even after the Big 12 was formed. In 1995, they were in the same conference. TCU and Baylor were in the Southwestern Conference together. And once that kind of dissolved, after Arkansas went to the Southeast, and then the Big 8 expanded to Texas A&M, and Texas Tech, and then eventually Baylor, we watched as Baylor became basically the laughingstock of the Big 12 for about, let's say, 10 years. They had a couple of competent seasons at the end of the aughts, and then they really didn't become a good team until about 2010. And then they won, and then Robert Griffin won the Heisman in 2011. They won their first bowl game in forever in 2000. Oh my God! Baylor won their first bowl game in forever in 2011, and then, they were in a championship contention by 2013. TCU, on the other hand, had a much, I don't know if I'd say more sustained, but they had more success. They had a couple of undefeated seasons. They had LaDainian Tomlinson. They had that guy Tank, whatever his last name was. They went to the Rose Bowl, and they won a Rose Bowl, you know, in the Mountain West, or possibly in the Conference USA, but I believe they were in the Mountain West for most of that time. And ended up, I mean, they had a better 20, for the first maybe 15 years of the Big 12, TCU was unquestionably better than Baylor was. When all the reports that came out after the fact, or possibly during the fact, I wasn't really alive, well, I was alive during the time, but I was like 1 year old. Oh, shit. Ran into a blocker. That's what happens. I thought I had a kind of a lane there to the end zone. Oh, God. All of the reports from the time, and even after the fact, point to Baylor being the last school let into the Big 12. Kind of the last school, I don't know if I'd say allowed in, but like the last school that they went for. They said, okay, we got Texas and A&M are the big two. Tech, I guess we're just bringing, and then, I mean, Tech, Texas Tech didn't really have a great football history either until the mid, oh, wow, damn. Really, I mean, they had a history, but they weren't like a consistently good team until the mid-aughts. Really, the early aughts with Cliff Kingsbury in there and the air raid. Wow, okay, we have set ourselves up for something not so good so far here in the Red River Shootout. Red River Shootout. I gotta figure out how to say that word. There we go. There's a user pick. I almost well, I applied some pressure on the quarterback. Then managed to come up with that. There we go. That's good. One pick right after another. That's how you like to see it. And no. Okay. So the run game has not exactly been overwhelming today. Like a pro form. Nice. Let's do some pro style offense here. Let's do some FB blast right up the middle. The guy, he's a 46. Yeah, he looks like a big guy. There we go. Break a tackle. There we go. Anyway, so TCU and Baylor, when they got back into the same conference, they already had kind of a rivalry in the early 90s because they were two Christian schools. Baylor being, I believe, Baptist, and I'll be completely lost. I don't know what denomination of Christian Texas Christian University is. Oh, we 3 and out? We're never 3 and out. If we need 4 yards, I know just damn well where to get them. I think. Yeah, I think we'll be good. I don't know why I adjusted my punt there. Yep. Good. Okay. I like how the camera's like dynamic there. Kind of zooming in just to increase the illusion. So that's the first fake punt of the game. I believe the first fake punt of the return, or the semi-return, the pseudo-return. It's been back for, I mean, it never really left. The pseudo-return of Trophy Hunt. Let's just do that. In my Madden 2003 series, which is just going swimmingly. I mean, absolutely a great year, which is going to turn out to be a classic season in the history of the Kansas City Chiefs. I should really do a fake punt meter. Because the teams in Madden 03, just the AI is more, I guess, more aware of the fact that I'm going to do a fake punt. And so they defend for it. That was bad. I got hit as I threw. That would have been a bad throw anyway. They had great coverage in there. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I pressed Y thinking it would take me back out, but it didn't. So let's see where we can go here. Probably on a slant. Let's just have somebody move over. So that'll leave the tight end maybe open, and then that'll leave less coverage on number 4 over there. Let's see how that works out. Maybe. No. Okay, couldn't get it to him. He had position, though. That wasn't... Ah, damn it. I did it again. So we're just going to press audible. I gotta remember to press B next time. So why am I talking about TCU and Baylor this whole time? Well, because it brings a brand new perspective on this, wherein Oklahoma... Okay, well, TCU and Baylor both got left out of the playoffs this year, which sucks. I think they deserve to be there. I don't know who you would have taken out. Maybe Florida State, but Florida State was undefeated. You know, Ohio State didn't have the best resume, but they ended up winning. So what does that really, tell us? You know, Alabama obviously had a great season, even though they lost in their first game. So maybe Alabama didn't really deserve to be there. I mean, Oregon is the only team that I think, like, definitively you could look at that and say, well, yeah, of course they'll be there. Because, I mean, they lost to probably the best team of anybody outside of TCU. Their one loss was to Arizona, who may have actually been one of the better teams in the especially in that conference, was probably one of the top 10 teams in the country. Suffered a loss in the Fiesta Bowl, though. So what did we learn from there? And then just a bunch of just one losses. Next year we will see if we're. Oh wow, that linebacker just read that perfectly. Next year we will figure out whether or not. Okay, I like that. I like that. Going for it on 4th and 6. If you punt here, what are you really doing? You're not going to be able to make a field goal here. Let's just go for it. Let's just try to find an open man. Anyway, next year I hope there are more undefeated teams. That was the series. Oh, damn it. Could have got that to him earlier, and that would have been an easy first down. If we have more teams go undefeated next year, we will not have that problem. And it's always very possible. But there's just very good... I mean, there's parity within a lot of these conferences. And that's what happens sometimes. Some coaches, especially in the Southeast, were complaining about how 2 teams from their conference, in a 4-player system, in a 4-team system, wouldn't have the shot, wouldn't have the ability to make it into the playoffs in most years, because if you look at last year, there was nobody really outside of maybe Mississippi State, but they got they got dismantled by Alabama. And then they also lost to Mississippi, which is also, not good, generally. So, I mean, there wasn't that much of an argument there. Nobody from the SEC East was that good, and the only other one would have been Ole Miss, and they weren't really that great either. Auburn didn't have a great year last year. They had a good year, but they weren't playoff ready. But the complaint is that two Southeastern Conference teams can't make it in effectively. I mean, they could theoretically because we had 2. If you remember, we used to have a system of 2, and we had 2 SEC teams make it in 1 year there. So just adding 2 teams does not mean that it's going to be impossible for the Southeast to see another new player. And in the Big 12's case, we have a similar problem. Maybe not the most similar problem, but our biggest problem is that we don't have a conference championship game. We have a precedent with last year that not having a conference championship game means you will not make it in. And if that continues into next year, let's say that next year it's Baylor and TCU again, and neither of them make it in because Baylor loses to TCU and TCU loses to whoever, Oklahoma State or somebody like that, Kansas State. If that happens again, I don't think that'll be enough to really say, okay, just throw away the whole system. We either got to get 2 more teams in here, or we have to have 2 divisions of 5 so we can play a final game at the end of the season, just to have a shot. Because we've said before that we won't do that. Or I think the NCAA, at least, and there's another Oklahoma touchdown. The NCAA has said they're not going to do that. So what the issue is here, and why, we're 3 minutes, we're 7 minutes into the game already, and I'm about to get to my final point. Oklahoma really is the key in all of this. If what happened to TCU and Baylor last year were to happen to Oklahoma in a year in the future, Oklahoma could reasonably say that they were host, that this program is too big, we make too much money, and if being in this conference is going to stop us from winning championships, then we will go to somewhere that will not stop us from winning championships. TCU, Baylor at this point are big, they're big names because they've been good recently, but they don't have the massive amount of clout that Oklahoma does. And if the same thing happened to Texas, Texas is so entwined within the Big 12. Texas is, to a certain extent, you associate the Big 10 with Michigan. You associate the Pac-12 with USC. The Big 10 might also be Ohio State, rather. The SEC, is Alabama. That's their conference. The Big 12, frankly, belongs to Texas. What Texas wants, Texas will get. And so if that were to happen to Texas, they would just say, okay, the Big 12 needs to change like this. And that would happen. I don't think Oklahoma might be able to try to do that, and then that would be the other thing to say, you know what, we just can't stay here. And I think there are conferences big enough to really desire a school like Oklahoma in them, and a program like Oklahoma within them. And the popular rumor, at least this year, has been that it would be the Big Ten. I don't know that the Southeastern Conference would expand into Oklahoma. I don't know that the Pac-12 would expand there. I think the Big Ten probably would. Now, who would they take with them? Well, the common thing is that Oklahoma State wants to carry Oklahoma wants to carry Oklahoma State with it wherever they go. Now, I don't know how realistic that actually would be. I don't know how if that would actually happen. They couldn't go to a conference with 14 teams there because I don't think anybody's willing to go over to break that 16 barrier. But the Big East did long ago in basketball. But that was that old 20-team conference in 2009. They're like, is the Big East really the best basketball conference ever? And it's like, well, they have it. They have so many teams in because they just have so many teams. But oh God, what was I about to say? If you got screwed, if Oklahoma were to get screwed like TCU did last year, then oh damn it, that was a terrible decision, Joe. Bad Joe. Oh God, I hope nobody hears what I just said. I hope everybody stopped the video by that point, just so they didn't have to hear me just say that. Oh, hey, bobbled it, but he got it, so whatever. We were getting absolutely screwed on the running game, and I don't think our running backs had more than 30 yards on, probably more than 10 carries. We're probably getting with the wheel to our halfback. That's not going to work. All right. Not going to work out clock. All right, so here we go. Going to run it up the middle here on 4th down. We have 1 conversion on 2 attempts. Can the fullback get it for us? Oh, the fullback can get it for us. Okay. So I guess clock's going to stop, so we can just go ahead and do this. I don't know why I'm passing so much out of the ace today. That's a little unusual, if you know me, but this is Texas. Hey! There we go. Okay. We'll go ahead and time out here. It's because I think I will need it. And, 6-yard line. We'll go into the weak twins. We will go to the play-action fullback wheel. I like that. Granted, they might be blitzing a lot of people here, so I might just kind of have to get rid of it quickly. Yeah, they are blitzing a lot of people here. There we go. That's how you get up there, my big fullback. That was a weird... Okay, watch what the quarterback does here. He just kind of had to, spin himself around to get into the proper position because he's left-handed, and then jump and throw it. That's how you do it. That's real good quarterbacking. So anyway, Oklahoma and the Big 12 and the whole thing. This rivalry could be what ends up bringing the Big 12 to its knees. One of these 2 schools will be what ends it. Because, nobody else has the ability to. The only other school that probably would have been A&M, maybe. And not really. Nebraska, maybe. And that's how both of those schools, I think, got out. Missouri just kind of got tagged along, I think, because Missouri... They do seem to kind of fit in the SEC. Mizzou, just their kind of fan base and the just the way that schools run, I guess. Not, and that's not like an insult. That's just like a thing. They do have a sort of culture that complements the SEC. So does A&M. So those are both good fits. It's not like, I don't think you could have put, I don't know, you probably couldn't put Kansas State into the Pac-12 or one of those sort of conferences. Actually, you know what? Kansas State, like a bunch of, I'm trying to imagine like Kansas State and Cal, because the weird culture shock between K-State and UCLA this year in that bowl game, where Bill Snyder just kept running guys at him while they were trying to take a knee. That was just like so bizarre to so many people in the Pac-12. Meanwhile, in the Big 12, it's just like, well, yeah, that's what that's what they do. They'll try to, because I mean, Oklahoma State has done that before a lot. I guess that's just not a Pac-12 sort of thing. That, for whatever reason, is a Midwestern thing. Just kind of depends. And I understand, play to the last whistle, but, maybe don't injure the quarterback. They shouldn't have to take their starting quarterback out because guys are gunning for him. I think I've talked about that stupid bowl game probably 4 or 5 times on this show, and I don't know why. I do not know why. It just keeps coming back. Anyway, so this conference, this game, kind of defines the Big 12. It was the old southern tip of the Big 8, the old ruler of the Big 8, and the new ruler of the Big 12. In the 20 years of the Big 12's existence, the conference has 2 national champions. Oklahoma in 2000 and Texas in 2005. Over the 20 years of the Big 12, well, over the 15 years that the Big 12 had a title game, 13 of those 15 title games were taken up by either Texas or Oklahoma. There were 2 in the late 90s taken up by A&M during a weird slump by Texas and the weirdest slump by Oklahoma. Because there was a period in the late 90s where Oklahoma was not only below like the Oklahoma average, they were just flat out bad. To the point where in like 97 just everybody beat Oklahoma. There's a long streak for a lot of schools between the last time they beat Texas. Like Kansas hasn't beaten Texas since like the 50s. Iowa State, it took them until 2002 to beat Texas, and they hadn't beaten them in forever. Nebraska, both Kansas and Iowa State, and I think Missouri, 3 of them had like a 30 or 40 year streak of never beating Nebraska. And Kansas State as well. Kansas State didn't beat them until I think 98 from probably the 60s. Kansas didn't beat them until 2005. Mizzou, I think, was 2002. But nobody has that kind of streak against Oklahoma, even currently running, because they were just so bad in 97 and 96 that it was just like, oh yeah, we beat them. It wasn't even that big of a deal. Like Kansas beat them in 97. I think it took, Baylor may have beaten them in the late 90s. They were just like weirdly bad for some reason. Then Bob Stoops came over and took over. And a little bit about, I don't know if you've heard of this guy. His name's Mark Mangino. He kind of ran the offense there. And they had one of the best years in any football team in history. They went undefeated in the Big 12. They beat, who was it? Florida State, a Florida State team that didn't deserve to be there in 2000. And it probably should have been Miami, and that would have been a better game. I don't know if, because Miami did beat Florida State like that year, if I remember correctly. That was like Florida State's one loss, and then Miami's one loss was an early season loss, I remember, to Washington. Which, in a very funny instance, if you looked at that BCS poll from that year, it was this whole controversy over, well, Florida State lost to Miami, but Miami lost to Washington. I mean, come on. And then Washington was sitting there like at 4th or 5th, and asking, can we get in on this argument, on this conversation? Touchdown Texas, by the way. I don't know anything about any of these players from this era, so I'm very sorry. 2002. Well, because 2002 was a year where both Texas and Oklahoma really choked. They both could have, 2001 specifically, both of those teams could have been challenging for the title. And Oklahoma lost to Texas, and then Texas lost to Texas in 2001 had a legitimate shot at the title going into the last weekend of the season, because in 2001 it was a conversation in the Big 12. It was either going to be Texas or Nebraska. About 3/4 of the way into the season, could have both of them easily been playing for the title. And Colorado ended up winning the conference in one of the weirdest ends of the season, because Colorado ended up beating like an undefeated Nebraska team and beat them by like 40 points. It was like 62-20 or something. And probably the greatest hour in Colorado football history, because the way that they hated Nebraska was so much different than anybody else. Because Colorado was like, hey, we're here too, guys. We're also here. We have a good history. We won a title that one year. You guys remember us, right? It's us, Colorado. And they just couldn't keep it up. And Nebraska ended up being the major power in the Big 8. And Colorado was just kind of sat there, and then also lost to Nebraska so many years. It would be like if it would be like if K-State didn't have Kansas. That would have been the rivalry they had with Nebraska, because Nebraska had like a weird cross-section where they hated Oklahoma, theoretically. But then they didn't play Oklahoma every year, so they played Colorado, but I think there was a part of them that liked saying, we don't care about Colorado. Meanwhile, Colorado was kind of fuming about it. It was kind of like Kansas and Missouri for a while, where Kansas was like, well, no, we hate Missouri. You guys are just K-State. And then K-State would be like, but we hate you too. And it's like, okay, that's fine, but hey, that was a good, I think that was a knockdown. I don't know. Things are working there. We're getting pressure. We're not getting sacks, unfortunately. But that's just what happens sometimes. That linebacker number 11 was somebody. He was important. Roy Williams might be in this game. Roy Williams, the safety who went on to play for the Cowboys for a couple of years. Not to be confused with another man also named Roy Williams who played wide receiver for the Detroit Lions in the late aughts. Also not to be not to be confused with Roy Williams, the former coach of the Kansas Jayhawks and current coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Oh, get him! Almost got him that time. I hurried him. That's what's really important. What? Okay, how did he let that get out of his arm? Like, his arm went through my player's body. Unrealistic. Throw the challenge flag. Actually, there is no challenge flag in this version of the game. So, you can guarantee, pretty much, that whatever call was made is what happened in the game. You might not agree with it or think, oh, that's really not possible that happened, but that's what happened in the game. They're not going to just, like, completely... They're not going to, like, shortchange you like in Madden 03. And the perfect computer, the thing controlling the game, is not going to make the wrong call on purpose. The game's not going to lie to you, in other words. Oh, yeah. Yeah! Get it! There we go. That's how you do it. Drag that foot, complete a 30-yard pass, complete 5 consecutive passes. That is how we do it at the University of Texas at Austin, the, I believe, largest school in the central United States. I don't know why I said central. The largest school west of the Mississippi. Let's say that, because that still, for some reason, is the dividing line, even though it leaves us with like 2/3 of the rest of the country. Because really, the east and west demarcation in the United States is unfair. For years, I've had to sit with Kansas City being considered a Western. St. Louis, the St. Louis Rams are considered a Western franchise because there just weren't cities in the West before now. Meanwhile, Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, are in the NFC East, and I know that's to preserve rivalries. Because the NFC East is like the NFC East and basically AFC West are the only ones with real, like, long-standing rivalries that weren't completely cut up in the shift of division. Because there used to be, each year, there used to be, like, San Francisco and Atlanta used to be a big divisional rivalry in the mid-90s, or in the early 90s. That's just because that's how they work. That's how I believe the NFC West, which happened to contain both maybe the Saints were in the Central. Whatever. Unimportant. No, the Buccaneers were in the Central, because when you think of the middle of the United States, you think Tampa Bay. Let's go for the field goal. How about I let the clock run down? Get you to the fourth quarter here. So let's let that finish. He'll just kind of stand there with his arms up in front of him. Now for the fourth quarter, I guess I could talk. I did write 5 things down for me to talk about today. They're not all that interesting because nothing's happening right now. This is the most important thing to note. Nothing's really happening right now. Major League Baseball season is still going, but what's really all that interesting about it? I'll give you the answer. Nothing. Nothing is all that interesting about the Major League Baseball season in August. When it gets to September, okay. Alright? August is just telling us a lot of things we already knew. Right now, the Kansas City Royals in the AL Central are like 10.5 games up on the second place team. I honestly cannot wait for this postseason because there's going to be a crazy amount of like Royals hysteria. People are going to be like going to bars. I might end up going to bars and watching like the Royals in the playoffs. And then people around here, because I mean, I'm 20. People 10 years older than me will be watching the Royals in the playoffs for the first time in their life. I mean, well, last year was, but I mean, we'll be like seeing the Royals continuing on. Oh, fumble, there we go. We get the ball back. That's how you do it. We'll be seeing the Kansas City Royals in the playoffs for only the second time in their life. Last year, they made it to the World Series. They didn't lose a game in the weeks leading up to it. Not one game was lost by these Royals. So next year, when we inevitably choke in the division series to the I guess it'll be the Yankees, we're gonna see how we react. Do we get violent? I won't be in Kansas City. I'll be in Lawrence. We don't generally get violent there. We just get disappointed. Actually, Lawrence after a big loss is kind of weird because like you hear about Lexington, Kentucky so often after their even wins and losses. They burn stuff and couches, and the police scanner is always a popular thing to pay attention to. And then Lawrence, Kansas, after a big loss, everybody's just like kind of sad and passive aggressive for like the next 5 days. We're just like, yeah, whatever. All right. I was back in March. I had a guest professor come. No. It was March of last year. I had a guest professor come in after KU lost to Stanford in the oh shit. Oh, we'll just throw it. Whatever. That was holding. Yeah, 4th and 11. Okay. So I kind of totally blew that. Whatever. That happens. I had a guest lecturer come in to a class. It was the day after we had lost to Stanford. He was just like, yes, so I'm just telling you a little bit about the idea of leadership within the journalism world, because this was a journalism class. If you're designing, you have to have somebody up at the front, maybe not just one person, anything like this. This is something that I worked on in my 20 years working at Stanford University. And people were just there was just like a sigh in the room. It's like and he was like, what? Oh, I forgot. That's the kind of thing you get. You don't get the light posts being brought down. You don't get cars being smashed. You don't get burning couches in the middle of the road, as I would have to imagine it is in Lexington. Or as it is in Lexington, as I've heard in Lexington. You just get kind of the somewhat more draining. Now, you know what? I'm going to say property damage might be a little bit more draining than just me kind of letting a deflated sigh out. Well, it wasn't me. It was people. I'm better than those people. As previously stated, I am the one true good fan, and I will never say anything bad about myself. I've never done anything bad in the name of sports, ever. Not once in my life. I have never once, say, looked into a TV camera that happened to be on and broadcasting my face and do the Catholic cross over my chest after an Iowa State player was stopped short of a first down. He wasn't hurt, you know, it wasn't anything like that. I also yelled "rest in peace" during that game. But that was, you know, I never do anything like that. Because that would be unsportsmanlike and really unclassy. Not classy. The important thing in sports is not that your team wins or loses. It is that you celebrated with just enough knowledge of the fact that somebody was going to say something on an internet forum about you. Alright? Because anything that happens, you win a game, really the important thing is, if you're on the losing side, the one final, outside of bringing up your academic history, which is just stop, please. I see it way too much from my own damn school. It's like, yeah, well, you're not as good as us academically. It's like, well, we're not talking about academics here. Alright, man? You beat us in basketball. Whatever. It happens. Alright? It happens. Get over it. The one other thing you can always bring up is the fact that somebody from the other team had a sign or made a chant that besmirched the name of the good team that was there playing against them. Of my perfect, undeniably unquestionably, there we go, there's the word. I think I already said that in the sentence. My immaculate favorite sports team and my immaculate fan base, God, what the hell word am I even looking for? Unsoilable. Our virgin fan base of perfect human beings would never stoop to such a low as saying something as vulgar as the S word on a sign? Never. Never. The F word has no place in basketball or football, especially specifically not after a kickoff when the ball is in the air, followed by the words head off and preceded by the words rip hip. Never would that ever happen, because we are a kind, pure-hearted people who only want to come out and support the team. And you demons from wherever you're from had the audacity. Oh, that was just quick. You see that guy just like whoop? Let me see if that's on the replay. I hope that's on the replay. No, it's not. Okay. He just kind of whoop right up there. That was the noise he probably made when he was doing it in this virtual world. You ever wonder if any of these players have a conscience? You know, it is artificial intelligence. After every time that I turn the console off, am I ending a number of lives, regardless of if they are real or not? Am I ending a free-thinking, free-moving being of some kind? Anyway, back to keeping it classy. Back to the there are points when a fan goes too far. You know, when you're cheering, say, a player who was knocked out, a player who, you know what, was kind of rude to your fan base, you know? Ain't that right, Philadelphia Eagles fans? Who is lying down on the field, concussed and literally unable to move. Knocked out, physically unable to move his body. And you're cheering him on? It's messed up, alright? It's not cool. But let's say I'm just not going to get that upset about a fuck KU chant, alright? Especially during the classic Darude Sandstorm song. But, you know, I'm just not going to get upset about that. I am going to get upset when you say there is absolutely nothing wrong that happened, though. You're doing something like that. This whole series has just been me complaining about my school and the other school in the state. But I saw a newspaper article from somewhere, I don't know, or maybe it was just a Facebook post or something. It was like, well, you guys do that. You guys have a chance at the end of your games too, you know. The rock chalk thing. And it's like, well, what's the difference? I'm gonna think of a difference between rock chalk Jayhawk and fuck KU. I'm gonna try to figure it out, right? And yeah, obviously, there's been a bunch of. I literally have spent the past 10 minutes, probably 15, bringing up all of the stupid things that my stupid school does. Not stupid. My immaculate, perfect school. Of beautiful, perfect human beings. Have you ever been to a basketball game and sat with one of those people, or a football game? I have. It's great. They stand next to you the whole game. What? That was not a foul. All right? He was just moving. It's just moving. Yeah? Come on. Oh, goaltend. Come on. You got to call something. What? You got your money in hands? You got Texas hands in your pocket, man? Come on. You accepting money from the fucking Red Raiders? I mean, come on. Who's actually going to bribe a referee? All right? There's no acclaim here. Acclaim, that being a reference to early 2000s software publishing house Acclaim, who notably did try to pay off reviewers at one point. Come on! Wow. I cannot believe that. You called that, but you didn't call this from earlier in the game 15 minutes ago? That I remember? Come on! Ugh, these officials. Walk, travel. That's what college basketball effectively is. Is a bunch of people. It's like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch commercials. Like, can he see traveling and everything? Yes. Yes, he can. He dunked, travel. He let the ball out of his hand, shot the ball. Anything other than a standing with both feet planted on the floor and then a jump shot in the air and a perfect release into a swish into the basket. We won that game with 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals. That's how you do it sometimes in the Big 12. We're going to cut to a shot of a guy very sad. It might be Jason White. He didn't play in the NFL. He undrafted, went to the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think he played in the preseason. Jason White. Former Heisman Trophy winner, and a damn good Heisman Trophy winner. That's the end of that. We do end up with one. We'll watch the kneel down one more time. We do end up with, hopefully the replay is not going to kill my machine again, with a trophy here. Unlike last week, where we would have undeniably have ended up with a trophy and just didn't because my Xbox froze. That's what happens sometimes. Thank you for listening to me complain for like 20 minutes. I'm just, 42 minutes and 45 seconds. I'm sorry. Thank you for watching, though. Let's get excited for the upcoming college and professional football season. I will see you tomorrow on the digital gridiron of Pilot Wing 64 for the Nintendo 64 on Cron 64.